All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Michelle. And Michelle, man, I'm going to pray that I get this right. Is it Villalobos? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
That's one way to pronounce it. But if you were to pronounce it in the way that it's supposed to be pronounced in Spanish, because it's a Spanish last name, it would be Villalobos.
Villalobos. Okay, very good. Very good. Well, I'll tell you, I have been looking forward to this interview. And I'll tell you why. You and I, and you know, Mike Domish is the one who connected you and I. And Mike has one of those last names too that you would never guess it's Domish by the spelling.
Right.
So,
yes.
And I'll tell you, Mike and I have become very good friends over the last few years. And when he told me that, Kevin, you absolutely need to interview Michelle for the Relationships Podcast, that just carries so much weight. And you and I connected. We had a conversation before. We just totally hit it off. And we both agreed, yep, we need to do this. And here we are. And
here we are.
I have just really been looking forward to this, Michelle. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of stuff. I want to turn it over to you. And just we're going to set a little bit of context here to start with. So why don't you share a little bit about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work that you do and the impact that you're making in the world. And we'll start there.
Okay. My company is called Superstar Activator. And for the last 15 years, I've been helping people find and create the kind of inner alignment needed to create outer results in their lives and in their businesses. So my clients tend to be creators, visionaries, thought leaders, people who have created something, developed something that they want to teach others. They want to share others in service of humanity. So their goal, or they're driven by an idea of making the world a better place, uplifting and inspiring other people. A lot of my clients are speakers or authors, they're coaches, consultants, mentors, or something like that. And the work that I do with them helps them figure out how to make their business more in alignment with who they really are, what they're really here for, their purpose, their passions, and all of that, and turn it into something more leveraged, more scalable, so that they can have a broader impact without burning themselves out in the process.
Wow. You know, I'm going to tell you that really speaks to me personally, because you know, I used to run another company for 13 years, and it's not like it wasn't successful. It was, and we built that company up to a really great level and all that. But there was still this kind of like feeling that there was something more that I wanted to be doing, that I should be doing. And I kind of battled with that for a number of years. And I talked with a lot of my friends about it. Heck, I remember being in Strategic Coach, and, you know, Dan Sullivan has this thing that he calls unique abilities. He refers to that. And it took some little bit of time for me to figure that out for me personally. But I will tell you, once I got in alignment with like who I was really and the way that I wanted to show up, man, things changed big time.
Yeah. It's an accelerator. It accelerates everything. And there's more joy, more fulfillment. Like, so what I always say, and you can see it behind me, energy precedes outcomes. And what that means is that the energy that we create from, right? If we're creating from an energy of joy and contribution and excitement and gratitude, we're going to infuse everything that we create with that energy. Every video, every blog post, every book we write, every class we teach, whatever it is, gets infused. And so that energy comes from alignment in my world. That's my opinion. That's what I've seen happen in my own life and with my clients, that when we are in alignment, everything else there's more flow. It's easier. And there's not that nagging question of like, is this all there is? Because what you intimated, you alluded to that question of like, I feel like there's more for me out there. Well, alignment is what creates the more, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That is such a great description of that. And that's certainly what I have experienced. And I know, I also know a lot of entrepreneurs who don't have that. and who
Right.
are looking for that. They're looking for that clarity, and so, yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set and a little bit listeners have an idea of who Michelle is and what Michelle does in this world and what really inspires you, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here.
Okay.
I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Michelle, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Michelle, I'm just like really excited to dig in to this with you and just hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah. Well, I would say that there are a few people,
Okay.
there's one in particular that I want to go into, but there's one that's sort of counterintuitive that I also want to mention, but I don't want to dive into it deeply. I just want to say that so the first person that I'll mention that I don't want to dive into deeply was a person that I got engaged to and almost married, or thought I would almost marry, back in 2014. Long story very short, this relationship, the way it ended, is worthy of a Dateline NBC episode. It was one of these dramatic, crazy stories where I discovered that this person had faked a life, faked jobs, faked business trips, all of that. And the beauty of that, and the reason I feel like this person deserves a mention, is because it was one of the lowest points of my entire life. I call it the dark night of the soul. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. If I told you the story, people always, they are just blown away by it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me in hindsight. This one person altered the trajectory of my life because I had to stop. I stopped everything. I even stopped working. I stopped my business. My business fell apart. This would happen in 2014. And because of that breakdown, it was the opportunity that I needed. It was a catalyst for a complete life transformation. And it's the reason that I was even open to meeting the second person that changed my life, which was a mentor. And his name is Jake Merriman. And he knows this. And I tell this story, every once in a while, but the fact that I was so broken, I had fallen apart so much that the business had dried up, and I had built my entire identity around my business persona, my business success.
Okay.
And so when that went away, I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know, I was at the time, I was already helping people find greater alignment. I was leading Myers-Briggs workshops, right? And helping people align to their personality. But I personally was not aligned with my higher and greater destiny. And I wasn't doing the inner work that I needed to do. I didn't know about it, that would eventually put me on the path that I'm on today. So the first person that was not a great, experience or relationship led me to that breakdown, which opened me to the possibility of even allowing a mentor to come in and support me in a way that changed everything in my life.
Yeah. So how did you and Jake happen to meet through this whole process, Michelle?
It's funny. I was, so we initially met right before the whole breakdown and the breakup and the breakdown happened.
Okay.
And I didn't really connect with him too much. I was like, meh, I met him at an event, met him at one of these 3-day, events that a coach was putting on in California. I went to go see how I could adopt some of these strategies for my business. And Jake and I met, didn't super hit it off. But then about 6 months later, this is now post breakup.
Okay.
Michelle is in the dark night of the soul. I was going to Denver to do a workshop, a personal branding workshop for a client. And I posted on Facebook that I was on my way to Denver. Now, you know how Facebook is, how social media is, you post the best, right? You don't post all the ugly stuff that's going on, or at least I didn't at the time. So, I was like, oh, I'm speaking in Denver, putting up a good front. And Jake's business partner reached out to me, Zach, and said, hey, I see you're coming to Denver. Do you want to have breakfast? So we get together to have breakfast, and I'll never forget. Zach at the time, that's Jake's business partner. He has a way about him that's very loving and open, and sort of like you kind of know you could tell him anything and he's not going to judge you. So we sit down, we have breakfast, and basically he's like, tell me about your life. Tell me how you're doing, what's going on. And I don't think it was even 5 minutes before I broke down in tears and was just like, my life is awful. My business is dried up. I'm so sad. Like, this happened to me. I was in total victim mode. And Zach said, wow, I think we might be able to help you with this. Are you open to having a conversation with my business partner, Jake? I guess Jake was the guy that, he did the sales at the time. So he put me on a call with Jake in August. And Jake enrolled me into a 3-day experience, 3-day immersion retreat to kind of, he couldn't even tell me exactly what it was. It was just like, you need this. And I believed him. And I sometimes I wonder why I was so trusting, because I wasn't trusting after what had happened with the ex and all that. My trust level,
understandable. Yeah.
But I trusted Jake and I believed him, and I gave him my credit card and I enrolled in this program. And it was in September of 2014 that I flew up to New York City, spent 3 days in a small little basement room of a hotel meeting room. And in 3 days, he was able to have me see a whole new possibility. He had me, what it was in hindsight, he had me become grateful for what I already had.
Okay.
Instead of relating to myself as a victim of like all these horrible things that happened to me, he in 3 days had me shift my perspective to, wow, I'm so lucky. Look at all the possibilities that I have. Look at all the opportunities that are open to me. And I got excited again. I had a vision again. And I ended up working with Jake for 2 years. We're still friends to this day. And when we were working together, part of what made it such a valuable and transformational experience is that, I would show up to our coaching calls, wanting to do strategy. I would show up with my pen and my iPad or my pen and my paper and be ready to like strategize. Like, I need help with this. My clients are doing that. And this isn't working. And how can I get more business? And, all the strategic stuff. And I remember Jake, one particular conversation, he just stopped me. He's like, are you meditating? And I was like, no, I mean, I'll do that. I need to figure all this out first and then I'll do that. He's like, you know what? Don't waste my time. If you're not going to do the real work, the inner work, then none of this strategy is going to work. So if you want to meet with me and you want me to help you with this stuff, then you better be doing the meditation and and he gave me, all these things that I had to do. And honestly, it wasn't until I started doing all those things on a regular basis that things started to change and grow and evolve. And I had a massive breakthrough in my business. I had a massive breakthrough in my personal life. And those breakthroughs have continued to this day.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds very similar to some advice that I've got in the past. Same kind of stuff. Are you doing the inner work? And because without the inner work, the outer stuff isn't going to matter, not one dang bit.
Not one bit. Energy precedes outcomes. And he knew that I was showing up with this desperate energy.
Yeah.
I was showing up with the energy of, if I can get all these out external things working, then I'll be okay. And he knew. He knew better. He knew, and I didn't. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see the label of the jar I was in. I kept thinking that the answer lied in more money and better clients and, all these external things.
Yeah. And I love the contrast that you've just provided here, because you had this one relationship that that you were engaged to a fiance who was not what they appeared to be, not what they portrayed themselves to be, and what came from that. And look, because hindsight's always 20/20. We go through these experiences, and it's not necessarily enjoyable. It could be very painful, and yet if we choose to find the good, to find the lessons in them, and look back and find that, and I know people in my life who have had experiences they had years ago.
Yes.
And the story that they're telling themselves about that whole experience definitely does not serve them. Definitely.
No.
But look at the story that you told about this unfortunate experience, but you have completely turn it into this story that not only does it serve you, but how many other people has it now served,
Yeah,
because you made that choice. And that's
totally.
so huge.
Totally. Well, and what I know now in hindsight, what I recognize now is that it is a choice.
Yeah.
And at any moment, we can make the choice to have an empowering story about whatever happened to us.
Yes.
And the way I look at it, and I know everyone's heard this before, but rather than, instead of looking at it as it happened to me, how did it happen for me? I know it's trite. I know it's everywhere now. And it's truly a choice that we get to make.
Yeah.
And the word that I use to kind of to describe that process is that I alchemized the experience. I digested it and processed it and alchemized it from something disempowering. I'm such a victim. Look what happened to me. Look at the men that I attract, or whatever those disempowering stories are, and I alchemized it into an empowering story, which is, wow, it was the stepping stone that I absolutely needed in order to catalyze growth, personal responsibility, and contribution, and find my true self. Yeah. And to really, because part of the reason I was even with that guy was because I was like, oh, once I get married, then I'll be good. Then my life will begin. Then I will be worthy. Right. And what I needed was to figure out that that's not the case, that I'm worthy. My life has already begun. And, all of those things are true right now.
Yes.
Not, once I have this outcome, which in my case, that outcome was getting married, and being, having that experience, which I felt like was this rite of passage, that if I didn't have it, then my life was worthless.
Yeah. And how many people feel that way, specifically even about marriage,
Oh, yeah. A lot of women do. A lot of women do.
Yeah.
And
when I get married, I will be fulfilled.
That's right. And I even had a mentor recently that I ended up not working with anymore, because it felt really, truly like in her world, if I didn't have that, then I was less than. And I felt that, like there was a part of me that was even believing that. And now I'm not saying I'm averse to it. I'm definitely open to meeting somebody and getting married and all the wonderful things. I absolutely would love that. And it doesn't make my life less valuable if I don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a huge distinction and a huge discovery that you made, that I already am all this. I already am worthy. I don't need anything to be worthy, or, I have everything already,
That's it. And that's a choice. And that's, I don't know if you remember, I might've mentioned this to you. I think I did, Kevin. I ended up, oops, there goes my sign. I ended up writing a book called But I Want to Fly, which is the story of that alchemy, of that process of taking the disempowering belief system, life story, and alchemizing it into following your dreams and your destiny. So it's written like in the format of it's a poem that came to me in a dream in the middle of the night, and then I turned it into this illustrated picture book. It's like a children's style book, but it's really for people like you and me.
Very cool. Very cool. So I want to ask a question. So if you look at both of these people that you have mentioned, and you look back over the years at what has happened and what has transpired, and if you think, I'm sure you could come up with a lot of different examples, but I'll just encourage you to focus on one. If you look at it, because of your relationship with either one of these people that you've talked about, because it allowed you to in turn have this huge impact in the world, and hands down, that never would have happened if not for your relationship with whichever of these people you're talking about. I would love to hear an example of that.
Well, I think for me, one of the things that drives me most is to see a transformation in someone else that happened as a result of my mentorship. So like Jake mentored me and my life evolved and changed, but then like Jake gets to also get the credit for the ripple effect that he had through the clients that I've served since. And so I guess I could do the same thing and say, if not for that transformation, then I would not have, like, I have a client who just, did a one-woman show in Chicago. about how to live a life with no regrets.
Okay.
And, hundreds of people came to that show and will come to that show over the next few decades, I hope. Right. So that never would have happened. All those people wouldn't have had that opportunity if she hadn't been in my program where she developed this show. I have, a client who she claims that she's a much better mother as a result of the work that we've done together, much better wife and mother. So like her son is getting the benefit of the work that she did with me, that I did with Jake. Right. I have a gentleman who came to one of my events recently. He's in my program. And he had an experience of feeling touched by the divine. Like he felt it. He felt like he had a direct experience of divine, whatever you want to call it, right? Without putting labels on it. That never would have happened had I not done the event, but not had I not opened to that world. I was a devout atheist until the work that I did with Jake. Wow. So, I mean, I can point to dozens of people that have been benefited from the work that I do. And then those dozens of people in turn are, paying it forward and rippling out from there. Yes.
And that, man, you explained that so good. And that's exactly where I was wanting to go with that was, because of who you serve. And if we look at Jake and the work that he did one-on-one with you, but yet the ripple effect of that, because not only did he impact you, but if we look at your company and the team members that you have, the vendors that you use, the clients that you serve, the ripple effect of that, and of course we take it beyond that to the clients that you serve, because they have families, the people in their life, the clients that they serve, and it just continues on and on and on. And the impact of what we do is it is such a big thing. It's such a huge thing that we will never really know the impact it is, but it's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And all because of this one interaction with you and Jake. And it continues to go to this day. It can, and it will, who knows where it's going to go from here, but it's huge already. It's
beautiful. And I really want to say thank you, Kevin, for doing the work that you do and having this conversation with me to bring my awareness and presence me to that. It feels huge and monumental and just very validating, and I feel a lot of gratitude in this moment. Thanks to you for bringing my awareness to that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For anybody listening to this, Michelle, that is like, man, Kevin, I just really like Michelle. I love the way she shows up. How can they find out more about you and the work that your company is doing?
Yay. Thank you for asking. I mean, the most obvious place would be to go to my website, which is superstaractivator.com. Okay. And the place that I invest the most energy and time right now is YouTube. Okay. I have about 600 plus videos in my library, all about that integration of the inner work and the outer work, specifically for speakers, consultants, coaches, experts like you and me, people who are in that expert industry, like how to grow your business and do it in a way that's aligned and energy rich and joyful and fulfilling.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. And I always, man, hosting this podcast has been hands down the most rewarding thing I've done in my 27 years as an entrepreneur. And this is yet another example of that. And such a testament to the power of relationships. And so I want to thank you for just helping deliver on that. That is just, I'm incredibly grateful to you. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Michelle?
Oh gosh, let's see. I mean, I want to say one thing that I think is so interesting is that when we think about the power of relationships, I initially thought of it, and I didn't think until we got on this call today, but I initially thought of it as, only the positive ones, the ones that quote unquote like ended great, or the ones that are still going on. But what you brought my awareness to, and I hope what everybody got, is that it's all of them. All of the relationships can be teachers, can be valuable, no matter how they end. Or what one of my mentors used to say, whether it's for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, every relationship is a teacher, and can be, should we choose to relate to it that way. That's so right. Thank you for that. And I hope that was clear from my share.
Absolutely. Well, Michelle, thank you so much again. Just really appreciated having this conversation with you. And I'm so excited to share it with so many other entrepreneurs. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you.